Hey, Shortcuts, Stephen here. This is video 2 for the price list that will go out this Wednesday, December 4th at 9 p.m. Sydney. That's Australian Eastern Standard Time. If you would like to be on the distribution list and the price list, then drop me an email, shortcutsrecordsaus@gmail.com. This is the classic rock, punk, new wave list, and it's an interesting list because a lot of the records that I've selected for this list have connections to each other. So I'm going to explain some of those as I go. And hopefully there will be some things of interest. You may well have heard of this opening album. This is the Beatles' White Album. This is a Japanese press. I think it might be 73. You can see the number here. It is number 135181. It comes complete with the poster and the 4 art prints, of course. And you'll have seen, and the OB as well. First time I've had a complete White Album since I think probably 2 or 3 years. So these are hard to come by. I really like the sound of Japanese White Album because it's such a dynamic record. It just really suits the way that the Japanese pressed and made vinyl. So unsurprisingly, Japanese White Album pressings are quite desirable. But I was thinking more about the White Album in the context of music in 2024. And it occurred to me, I haven't played the White Album for a long time. And I played side 1 and 2 this afternoon. Is it too much of a stretch to think of the White Album as a blueprint in some respects for how we now think about modern creativity? The reason I'm going to make this observation, and I'm happy for you folks to argue with me, is as I was listening to this record, just side 1 and side 2, so let's just remind ourselves what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about back in the USSR, Blah Dee Blah Da, Wild Honey Pie, Dear Prudence, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, Martha, My Dear, I'm So Tired, Rocky Raccoon, etc. It was like I was listening to an eclectic playlist. This just that side 1 and 2 embraces classic pop, reggae, kind of almost show tunes. The blues, rock and roll. It just goes on and on. And it was like, I imagine, when I think about artists today kind of rejecting labels, embracing eclecticism and kind of just doing their own thing, exploring different styles, sometimes within the same track, just like the Beatles do. It just really struck me as kind of unique in the Beatles canon, in that I think it is the only one of their records that is completely contemporary. It is absolutely relevant to right now. I mean, I just think that the demos, the way that the Escher demos became these records, kind of speaks bedroom producer to me. Every single band member's unique voice shines through, undoubtedly. It is collaborative in an unusual way, but in a way that I think is quite contemporary. It's less polished, but that makes sense, I think. It's quite prophetic. It is easily their most vulnerable record. And we know that because they almost broke up numerous times while it was being made. I think you can hear the brittle nature of their relationships, yet they were still fighting through it and creating great art. It's sprawling, like 30 tracks. It is like the, the drop of a contemporary artist now who just splurges what they've got, what they've made in the studios, put it all on Spotify. It's messy. It's multifaceted. It's unapologetic. It is the most weird record as the Beatles were navigating their own internal pressures and delivering something that they could never hope to do again. I think that's the reason why it's so enduring. It embraces imperfection. It doesn't chase something like Sgt. Pepper did or like Pet Sounds does. And so therefore, those records, I think, sound dated compared to the White Album. It trusts its audience in a way that maybe no record ever did up until that point, and you could argue ever since. It's amazing. And I think, therefore, is the most relevant record to now. And you listen to Revolution Number 9 and you think about what's happened in the world in the last year, and you think, yeah, there's a scream and a complete annihilation of reason that sits within that song that I think, again, just appeals to me. Anyway, just some thoughts. And so the link to the next record is kind of interesting. This is the debut album called The Scream by Siouxsie and the Banshees. So whilst I get the sleeve out, I wonder who amongst you can think, what is the connection between The Scream, Siouxsie and the Banshees, and the White Album? And it is, if I can find it here, the track 5 on the debut album by Siouxsie and the Banshees is a cover version of Helter Skelter, the maybe most proto-metal record or song that the Beatles ever recorded. Now, The Scream by Siouxsie and the Banshees really kind of post-punk starts here. This is what it sounds like. Angular, caustic, atonal, yet with beauty amongst the brutality. And, Siouxsie and the Banshees went on to make many great records, but their debut is as good as everything they made. I think it's as good as Juju, it's as good as Kaleidoscope, and that's the Japanese first press. Yeah. Well, I just thought that was an interesting connection. And that cover version of Helter Skelter absolutely nails the alienation that's in that song. It's well worth a listen. Play it as loud as you possibly can. So let's talk about a couple of other records that have got incredible connections. I'm going to talk about one of my favorite albums, and that is Aladdin Sane by David Bowie. Now, this is the Japanese first press gatefold, which means that it has one of the greatest interior centerfolds of any record ever. We all know how iconic the lightning strike is, and there's the kind of outline of Aladdin Sane. For those of you who aren't across this record, because in some respects it is some people think of it as a lesser David Bowie record. It is the follow-up to Ziggy Stardust. It is the first record where he clearly embraces glam. It is, I think, for me, it's in my top 3 Bowie albums. And I love this. Look at this centerfold. That is absolutely incredible. The guy was on an absolute tear at this point. The opening salvo of Aladdin Sane, side 1 of Aladdin Sane, starts with "Watch That Man," which kind of maybe could have been on Ziggy Stardust. It has a great chorus, it's driving, it's incredible. But then you get Aladdin Sane, the title track, with that absolutely incredible piano solo by Mike Garson, who out of nowhere establishes this avant-garde, jazz-driven, free rein, bonkers piano solo in what is an incredibly melodic and beautiful song, albeit one about alienation. I think it's an amazing track. I think it's a pivotal track. I think this is the one track that probably up until that track, Bowie was singles driven, classic, brilliant, melodic. And then all of a sudden, track 2 of Aladdin Sane, and he's avant-garde and weird. And I think that's part of the reason why you get to the Berlin trilogy. It is pivotal. He absolutely just, on that one track, just traverses really difficult genres. And, fair play. That's brilliant. And but, on side 2, you still get, some really cool tracks. We all know the Genie. You get The Prettiest Star. The Lady Grinning Band is a beautiful ending track. And you get that cover version of Let's Spend the Night Together. So he's embracing, classic rock of the 60s, like the Beatles, and in this case, obviously, the Rolling Stones. But Aladdin Sane, just amazing album, which leads to, bands like DEVO. The connection between Aladdin Sane and DEVO is that this record was produced by both Brian Eno and David Bowie. Now, this album absolutely is one of the weirdest albums of 1978. The connection to the Scream by Siouxsie and the Banshees, they were released in the same year. 1978, this absolute amazing global reaction to punk. And you get angular, crazy, weird bands like Siouxsie and the Banshees, like DEVO, and another band that I'm going to talk about in a second. This band were mad. I mean, Brian Eno tried to create something with them. They kind of rejected most of his ideas. There's this incredible story, you read the blogs, and they say, David Bowie came in and kind of cleaned this band up because they were so weird. Let's have a look at this picture that kind of describes it. They were in these yellow jumpsuits. That's how they appeared. Are we not men? We are DEVO. They still are completely mad. The track list has songs: Space Junk, Mongoloid, Gut Feeling, Too Much Paranoias, Sloppy, Shrivel Up. This was a band that was all about just crashing headstrong into the norm. They did not care in any way about what they were, what people thought of them. People hated them. Just thought they were just the worst band. Oh, man. I love them. I think it's just really, really cool. They did, another link back to Bowie, who covered Let's Spend the Night Together, is that DEVO covered Satisfaction and went on American TV and played the most self-destructive, kind of weird, almost cod reggae version of Satisfaction that drove rock critics and rock fans mad. The outcry was incredible. I think it's pretty great, and what a great sleeve, and what a great connection. Cover versions of Rolling Stones songs that were kind of controversial. The link between DEVO and the next band that I want to talk about is pretty obvious in some respects and pretty obscure in others. This is one of my all-time favourite records, another debut album from 1978. So put that in your pipe. You got Siouxsie and the Banshees, The Scream. You got DEVO, Are We Not Men? And you got the Specials, I tell you, 1978. Now, the commonality between the Specials and DEVO is pretty incredible. You have a band that creates a unique look that is a reaction to what's inspired their music. So you get the yellow kind of jumpsuits, this kind of reactionary DEVO look, and you've got the black and white two-tone of the Specials, embracing ska culture and the mix of black music coming out of Jamaica and white music in London, this phenomenal nerdiness but embracing of music from other cultures that the Specials did pretty much better than anyone. And in the same way, the DEVO were espousing this theory of devolution, this kind of destruction of the mother state, the Specials eventually got to Ghost Town, a complete annihilation of Thatcher's strategy of politics in Britain, and the description of the destruction of Coventry, their hometown, that became one of the greatest number ones of all time. And an amazing record. And I was thinking earlier about what songs on here just resonate with me. You got Gangsters Too Much Too Young, which went to number one amazingly, and A Message to You, Rudy, that I just could never stop singing. It's amazing. Another record that has connections back to those, and I'm going to kind of put these two up together. You've got Remain in Light and Scary Monsters by David Bowie. Scary Monsters, Super Thieves being the kind of reaction to the Berlin trilogy that were really not commercially successful. And this was kind of Bowie's stepstone to Let's Dance and his amazing comeback in the 80s. But Scary Monsters and Super Creeps, they've got Ashes to Ashes, Fashion. It's really, really great album. And again, this is Japanese first press. And that Eno-driven, incredible Berlin trilogy was at the same time leading to Remain in Light. I think the cornerstone Talking Heads record, again produced by Brian Eno. That I've made a t-shirt of. Cross-Eyed and Painless being my personal favourite Talking Heads song. But on here you've also got Once in a Lifetime, which is my wife's personal favourite. A brilliant album, and those all sound incredible on Japanese presses. And now the connection to the next record is probably even more obvious. The Berlin trilogy featured Robert Fripp on guitar, and he, of course, the legendary guitarist of King Crimson. This is In the Court of the Crimson King, their legendary debut album, spectacular gatefold, really kind of sinister inner. If you don't know In the Court of the Crimson King, give it a listen. Some of the most dramatic prog rock ever recorded. Brilliant album. All right, These next two records I'm going to talk about have got some link because these are the types of bands in the 80s that now took that kind of new wave permission to change, the embrace of synth, and they did something with it. Now this is the promo version of the, you can see the promo, actually maybe you can't because it's a little bit hard to see, it's just here, not for resale. The translucent blue Japan only release of the best of Japan, which is actually a superb compilation. Really, really, really great 80s band, and that's paired with the Pet Shop Boys, actually, which was one of their, I think their most famous or their most successful record in the UK. Again, this is Japanese first press, and this is the record that features those kind of treatises against consumers' culture. What have I done to deserve this? Shopping and rent, and the mega number one in the UK, It's a Sin. Just brilliant, brilliant, brilliant albums. All right, I have 4 Shortcuts royalty kind of classic rock records to finish. If you haven't filled out your shelves with some classics for Christmas, these might fit the bill. We have Rubber Soul by the Beatles. This one I don't get very often at all, and it sounds amazing. It's just not very common, hard for me to get. A collection of great dance songs, that compilation by Pink Floyd that features a couple of different versions, most notably of Money. So this has got One of These Days, Money, Sheep, Shine On You Crazy Diamond, Wish You Were Here, and Another Brick in the Wall. This is a pretty easy record for me to put on in this house because pretty much everyone, particularly side 2, just thinks that's one of the greatest sides of music they ever hear in this place. So I really like it. It sounds really good, and slightly alternative versions. And then 2 records you will undoubtedly know: the really wonderful Japanese first press of Rumors, which sounds amazing, and even better is this, the quadraphonic Santana 3. Look at that. Hard cardboard gatefold. In my mind, the only Santana record worth listening to, where the guitar wizardry of Carlos Santana is at least equaled by, and I'm going to have to try and remember his name, the 17-year-old guitarist who... Neil Schon, Nealschon, who went toe-to-toe with Santana on Santana 3. I think it's my favourite Santana record because it's the least Santana sounding record. It is more kind of classic rock blues, just amazing histrionics. So, and the quadraphonic just sounds amazing. To me, to my ears anyway. So there you have it. A very diverse list of weird and wonderful records that have some interesting connections. As always, please leave a comment. Let me know if you have any thoughts. If you'd like to be on the price list for all of those records, which will go out 9 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time or Sydney time on Wednesday the 4th, drop me an email, shortcutsrecordsaus@gmail.com. And please leave a comment or take a few seconds out to acknowledge the video. It means a lot. And thank you so much for listening. Bye.